Hello, welcome to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Fantastic Fiction is a monthly speculative fiction reading series held on the third Wednesday of every month, hosted by Ellen Datlow and me, Matthew Kressel. We spotlight well-known and up-and-coming science fiction, fantasy, and horror authors, and admission is always free. We publish a monthly podcast and video so people who can't attend the in-person event can still enjoy the readings. If you'd like to support the series, you can donate at kgbfantasticfiction.org/support. Anyway, on to the show.
Half of you, maybe more than half of you, but I still love you. You guys are great. I'm not just saying that because I've had a couple drinks. I love you too. And now the mic is slipping around. All right. What's going on here? This mic is flying around. My name is Matthew Kressel. I co-host a series with Ellen Datlow. Let's give a hand to Ellen. We love Ellen. Come on, we could do better than that. Let's do it. One more time. Yes, there we go. That's what I like to hear. All right. This mic stand is very wobbly tonight. I'm going to try to tighten it up. Let's see what we can do. There we go. I think I got it. All right. We'll see what we do. This is Fantastic Fiction at KGB. We are held on the second Wednesday of every month. It is always free. We never charge a cover. The only thing we ask is that you buy a drink, hard or soft, and tip your bartender, Mary. Let's give a round of applause for Mary, who is working hard to keep all of us hydrated. And Lincoln, who's somewhere outside, making sure that the riffraff stays out. Or maybe the riffraff stays in. Maybe that's why. Thank you, Lincoln, and thank you all for coming. Our website is kgbfantasticfiction.org. If you go to that site, you could subscribe to our mailing list. We do not spam. We just send announcements about upcoming readers. We also have a podcast, so if you cannot make it for whatever reason, you can listen to the recordings of the evening and feel like you are actually here with all the background noise, etc. I am very excited to introduce our readers tonight. Our first reader tonight is going to be Ursula Whitcher, and we also have Andrea Hairston, who's going to read second. Yes. Ursula Whitcher is a writer, poet, and mathematician whose collection of interwoven short stories, North Continent Ribbon, which I have an example right here. I'm told that Ursula has copies for sale. Is that right? So, yes. So after Ursula reads, you can come up, buy a copy, and get it signed. Get it personalized. North Continent Ribbon. By the way, I love that cover. Very cool. Is published by Neon Hemlock Press. Ursula lives in Michigan with a spouse who works on high-voltage outer space experiments. I need to ask you about that later. And two cats who work on lounging by heating vents. Look for more of Ursula's writing in magazines such as Asimov's and Analog, or in the American Mathematics Society feature column. Here is Ursula Whitcher.
Thanks everyone for coming out. I'm stoked to be here. I'm really glad that I was able to be invited. I want to read you part of a story in this book called The Last Tutor about one of my favorite characters. Their name is Isakandria Zarova, and they're kind of mad at a lot of things, and I figured maybe we could all, relate to that a little bit right now. But some of the things they're mad about are personal, and I'm not sure how dark we want to get tonight. So I figured I would just put on my serious nerd hat and do what we do in the gaming circle sometimes, which is talk about boundaries. So I'm going to ask you all to shut your eyes, and I'm going to ask you an easy question and a hard question. So shut your eyes. Raise your hand if you like robots. All right, good. We got some people listening. We've got some difference, which is cool. We don't all have to love the robots. All right, and the second question is an opt-out. One of the authority figures in Isakandria's life is abusive. If you don't want to go too far into that, raise your hand. All right, thank you. Thanks for your honesty. You can open your eyes and we're going to begin. I'm going to begin at the beginning of the story. It's going to be a bit of a challenge for me because it's a raucous party. I guess we can all relate to that, but we're going to have to keep track of it. I guess we'll start a little bit before the party. This is the last tutor. This is the year 3377 of the Nakorian Reckoning. Isa Kendria Zarova, heir to 5/8 of a share in Fountain Company, knew their tutor was already drafting his resignation letter. Thus, they submitted to his inspection with comparative good grace. If you take a soft brush to your eyebrows, you can accentuate the curve, the tutor suggested. Isa cut him off with a jerk of their chin. No makeup. Their best coat was too big. The tailor had run their measurements through a growth algorithm for 15-year-olds before cutting the fabric, and Isa had failed to meet the growth curve's expectations along with everyone else's. The embroidered fabric jutted over their bony shoulders like so much folded paper. Their wrists were covered by their undershirt of near translucent lawn. It was too fine to hide the bruises and scratches. "Dare I ask?" said the tutor, which Isa thought was ridiculous, since he was asking. "I found a boulder on the North Estate with a native lichen, fat plum-colored drops spilling over the edge like flash-frozen jam. You climbed up to look?" "I investigated the alien life form." Isa spoke scornfully but ironically. They were the alien on Nakarat. Their tutor, unmoved by cyanobacteria analog symbionts, simply sighed. "You didn't have time to rest your wrists in the healing accelerator?" "I didn't want to disturb Mother." It was a weak excuse, but it was now unanswerable. Nobody wanted to disturb Isa's mother an hour before a party. "Find a bracelet," said their tutor. "I know you have a good one." Isa had matching cuffs of carved green jade, hinged and capped with gold. They fetched them and let their tutor clasp them round their wrists, fastening the delicate chain. "There are leaves here like the Saint of Vines," he pointed out. All of Isa's tutors had this problem. They thought that because Isa was neither a girl nor a boy, they would be obsessed with fucking mysticism and want to spend all their time reading poetry about the ineffable oneness of the universe. The Saint of Vines, if they existed, would not love Isa. No one did. "How much do you think these cuffs are worth?" they asked. 3,200 credits each? They chose the number deliberately. It was their tutor's monthly salary. "More than that, I expect," said their tutor, tone now chill. "You would have to ask your mother." Isa's father was already in the receiving room when Isa and their tutor entered. A couple of his colleagues stood by the windows, noses almost pressed against the glass as they gazed along the valley and up the slope, tracing the path where the train tracks ran. The chief engineer from the Amaranth Company outpost just over the pass nodded vigorously at Isa's father. Their turban was swirled with amaranth purple. The tall woman beside them had the flared coat and flickering gaze that suggested physical security. Isa assumed the stiff brocade concealed a gun. Isa favored their father. They had his wide cheekbones and sharply pointed chin, but where he was compact, they were a bundle of wires. They bowed, jerkily but correctly, as befitted a Fountain Company heir. "Father, chief engineer, madam, I am pleased to join you with my tutor, Scholar Nauriz Bahev." "Bahev, you will make the chief comfortable, will you not?" said Isa's father. "Isa Kendria, come and meet the others." Scholar Bahev fell upon the engineer with the air of a man starved for adult conversation, even mining budgets. As Isa's father drew them away, he was already proposing a toast. Isa got to toast too, a real adult toast with vodka in a tiny blue glass. They swallowed their cough and smiled their best company smile. More of father's colleagues trickled in, some heading to the window, some to the buffet. There was one more woman, her veil spangled with fountain silver in quarter circles. Mother wasn't going to like that. Isa's mother waited to make her appearance until the sun sank behind the far hills and the twin planets glittered on the horizon. The light by the doorway brightened as she entered. Her coat was the deep blue, almost shading to green, of a half-kilometer deep mountain lake. Her brows arched like the rise and fall of moons. She led Isa's little brother by one delicate hand. Mirek had let her line his eyes with coal. Isa shoved their tongue against their teeth to keep from hissing. The woman with the spangled veil spun, pulled toward Mother as marbled paint follows a brush. Isa shouldn't have worried. Another triumph for Mother, and for Mirek, her best prop. Isa stuck by the window, close to their father and a cluster of his colleagues. The woman from physical security, a younger man whose beard had silver patches along his jaw and a black thumbprint beneath his lower lip. Another man with a soft felt cap and jutting ears, and father's favorite rival, Assessor Gulnarev, whose curly beard was entirely white. We saw so many animals from the train, said physical security. Antelope, elk, I hope the hunting here in your mountains is as good, Amirhanov. Father laughed. Tell me tomorrow evening if you're satisfied. We had lots of time to choose our ideal targets, said Big Ears. The train dawdled along. Right through an antelope migration path, not that he gave a fuck. Black Thumbprint nodded vigorously at his friend. I've never understood the lack of a real high-speed train. This continent is small. You should be able to board after your first cup of tea in Tengiz Ushiet and disembark the next morning by the Eastern Ocean. Do you want to be on a train going 300 kilometers an hour when it hits an elk? Asked physical security. Black Thumbprint shrugged. I'd be fine. I wouldn't want to be the elk. The real danger is another train, observed Kolnarev. Or a switching problem, said Isa's father. Kostyanov, you and Kamalev may be too young to remember this, but about 20 years ago, the Fisher Cats reprogrammed a switch. A 50-car train was halfway across when it flipped and the whole length jackknifed. Phew. Thumbprint whistled. Fucking gear fishers, how many people died? It was a freight train, but I believe it had a conductor, so one. Millions of credits lost, though. But it wasn't only one person. It was one person that the adults cared about. They were skilled at overlooking everyone else. One conductor plus one engine, Isa insisted. Yes, Isa, said their father solemnly. What's more, we are fortunate there was no chemical spill. The Fisher Cats preach that the planet is a garden, but when it comes to specific lives, they are careless. They're used to careening around the steppe in hopped-up go-karts, said Big Ears. That must be Kamalev. 8 hells. Isa hoped Mother wasn't planning to quiz them on names. Though, thinking about it, they didn't want to know their names. Physical security frowned, assessing Father's stature, his sparse and close-trimmed beard. There are plenty of Fisher Cats in the cities. Failed business owners, lawsuit losers, disaffected students. Half those students thought they'd be judges themselves till they failed their exams, said Kolnarev. Isa wondered if their tutor had planned to be a judge instead of a teacher. They should mention gavels and see if he twitched. Big Ears was chewing on his lip. About that jackknife train, what I don't understand is, why didn't the engine slow? The train should have started decelerating the moment it realized something was wrong with the switch. His friend Thumbprint gripped his shoulder and shook, laughing. That's the whole point of the operation, asshole. The Garefishers hacked the switch and spoofed its check-ins. The engine didn't know. And that, said physical security, is why lattice security matters just as much as my work. That sounds like a toast, Gulnarev declared. Shall we toast to that Amirhanov, the security of Fountain Company? Isa's father filled everyone's glasses, and they knocked the shots back. I feel like this could be a drinking game. That might be dangerous. Vodka wasn't so different from mountain water, Isa thought, if mountain water burned. Near the buffet, Isa's tutor fumbled and dropped a skewer. He covered for it by proposing another toast with the Amaranth engineer, whose cheeks were beginning to flush. Isa's father's friends were arguing about train routes now. If the north is too cold, why not try the south, suggested Big Ears. Run a spur over a pass, pick up traffic from some of the coastal towns. Thumbprint nodded vigorously. It's stupid not to have an alternative to crossing the steppe. All that emptiness means you don't know where you'll find a suicide bomber or a suicidal antelope. He was blaming the wildlife for Fountain Company's bad design. At least the southern line was missing for a reason. Isa protested, it's not that nobody has thought about building new tracks, it's the whole base of the South Coast Mountains is a swamp. You have to think about how the water falls and where it spreads, or your freight will sink into the muck. The Amaranth engineer drifted closer, drawn by the talk of rocks and water. I worked for an operation outside Jasau for a few years. We were always pumping. Jasau is all marsh, agreed Isa. Lots of bitterns, though. Isa Kendria, said their tutor, following his friend. I thought you hated geography. Oh no, said physical security cheerfully. Isa is Amirhanov's child. They've been telling us all about where to build the next fountain line. Isa, if you had to run tracks south, which path would you choose to go toward the sea? Don't be shy. Golnarev was beaming. Isa would bet their bracelets he had seen their tutor's glare. Applied geography is different? Isa said weakly. It was no good. Their father and their tutor were both listening, and one of the two men wouldn't like what they heard. Choosing whom to fail was not so hard. Isa braced their shoulders. So, your options for a pass are Usik and Yellowhead. Usik passes higher, but there's a ridge running towards it that will lift you out of the swamp. And it leads to Savda, which is 50% larger than Duckport, where Yellowhead would take you. I'd use Usik. Isa, said their tutor, you told me you didn't know the difference between Savda and Tengiz Ushiet. It's 1,800 kilometers and 3 climate zones, said Isa. I remember my essay. I remembered the essay too. I read every little word of it. When did you write it? Isa's gaze flickered. Know your space and know your enemies. There were 7 people within earshot. The closest was their father. He could easily cuff their ears, but he wouldn't do that now. Mother was still talking to the woman with the quarter moon veil. Isa took a deep breath and projected. They didn't want to have to say this twice. I wrote the essay contrasting Savda and Tengiz Ushiet when I was 10. When I was 10. Isa's tutor imitated their voice in a high-pitched whine. It was fucking insulting. They weren't even a high tenor. You recopied your infant work in new calligraphy and made me suffer through it? Green saint! What else did you lie about, Isa Kendria? Have you ever had a thought that wasn't stolen? He was making them sound like Mirek. Isa bowed so that he wouldn't see their face. I regret my insufficiencies, Scholar Bahev. I regret my presence on this side of the continent. Scholar Bahev gathered his flowing quotes and stormed out. The effect was spoiled when he tripped over a low table near the door. Father frowned impartially, and Physical Security's eyes kept moving, but Thumbprint and the Amaranth engineer were frankly staring. It was a scene. Isa had created a scene. The knowledge settled over them like a lead-weighted net. They checked the cluster where their mother stood, hoping she was absorbed in conversation. They were struggling against their failure, the way a bird would struggle. But Isa's mother was turning away from them, raising a fluted glass in yet another toast. Knots and wires. That meant she had been watching all along. Isa watched their tutor leave on the house cameras and stayed awake until his resignation letter pinged their tablet. They would have a morning of freedom before the storm. They set their alarm to start playing finch and sparrow calls before dawn. Father and his friends would hunt along the valleys. Isa chose an antelope trail that went more or less straight up. They hoped to glimpse a real fisher cat or one of the smaller tawny-throated martens. Some small part of them, the part that had listened to too many of their nurses' tales, felt they ought to apologize to the beasts for Thumbprint's rudeness. There was nothing wrong with being clever about gears. There was nothing wrong with caring about the trains. But Isa saw no fisher cats and no antelope either, nothing bigger than the plump and bobbing ground squirrels. They found a stream they knew. It had more rocks than water in this part of the summer, but they followed it upward, balancing on the boulders and watching the dragonflies flicker and zag around them. They perched on a flat rock to eat their lunch. The house and the other estate buildings were hidden by the curve of the mountain. Instead, Isa looked out to the sweep of the hills rising across the valley. Cedar and pine. Higher up there would be rhododendrons and lupin. The peaks in the distance were crinkled. Indigenous lichen might hold on there, lichen and ice. Isa heard a plop from the water below them and bent slowly, trying to peer into the water without casting a strange shadow. Their patience was rewarded by an orange streak and a wet glinting that resolved as their eyes adjusted into the figure of a Versilian salamander. It was swimming toward the center of the pool, its 6 legs resting as its powerful tail beat back and forth. Versilian salamanders were tough.
They bore live tadpoles and ate everything from crickets to young trout. They had been one of the first vertebrates introduced to Nakarat. Issa liked them. Issa turned up rocks beside the stream until they had a collection of millipedes. They deposited their collection in a divot of earth beside the pool, along with one live slug, and settled in to wait. The salamander approached cautiously, swimming by from one direction, then the other. At last it scuttled straight up, moving sideways. The extra legs helped it flip from one vector to another, and knocked the slug into the pool. "To the destruction of our enemies," Issa told it, sipping from their water bottle in a tiny toast. What would the salamander say if it could answer? Would it toast the preservation of its friends? Bright stars. Issa wished they had a friend. They would bring them millipedes every single day. Issa straggled back down the mountainside in the late afternoon. As their tablet came into range of the house node, it chimed 3 times. First with a notice their mother had scheduled a meeting for 10 in the morning, then with the sad tone of a missed meeting, and finally with a note she had rescheduled for tomorrow. If a conversation with your parent will not disturb your active schedule. Well, it wasn't like Issa could be more fucked. There would be a less formal reception that evening after the hunters returned, so Issa showered and dressed in their second-best coat, the one with the hand-knotted buttons. They still had a bit of time, and they had no tutor to assess their preparations, so they slipped into the north wing of the house and went to find their old nurse. Issa's nurse was short and round, though not as short as Issa. She had the broad nose and rolling hips of the steppe rovers, those descendants of early planet gardeners who roamed the continent, assessing what they had wrought. She also had bad knees.
The Mets were beaten by the Marlins today. The final score was 5-0.
Her knees puffed and swelled, not from the erosion of advanced age, but because her body fought itself. The conventional medicines were mostly poison. They besieged the body until it counterattacked, rather than tearing its own joints apart. The healing accelerator was gentler and safer, but it needed power and regular maintenance. It wasn't the sort of thing you could pack into a caravan. Besides, she loved Mirek. She even, unaccountably, amazingly, loved Issa. "Let me brush your hair," she told Issa now. Issa was nearly old enough for an adult turban. They could braid their own hair. But it was wonderful to sit on a low stool and feel the regular pressure of the brush. Sometimes their nurse patted their shoulder out of sheer companionship, and Issa had to fight not to purr like a cat. Their nurse used a hair oil with a sharp green scent, like crushed paria leaves. "You're getting big, Issalika. Soon you'll need more ribbons than just fountain blue." Issa blushed all over. Even their shoulders felt hot. Where the fuck did she imagine they were going to find a girlfriend? On the side of a mountain? They would have to stop looking like the back half of a stick insect, Mirek said, coming back from the kitchens. He had a sesame bun in one hand and a toy train in the other. It was painted with huge round eyes, the lashes nearly as long as his. "Mirhanek, show your sibling some respect." Mirek stuffed half the bun in his mouth and bowed, mumbling. Issa scrambled to their feet. "Thank you for brushing my hair." "Issa's running away, 'cause they're in trouble," Mirek said in a confidential whisper that wasn't soft at all. "I'm not. Father likes me to be timely." They missed a meeting with Mother, and now they're gonna cry. But it's not their fault. Mirek was addressing his toy train now, holding it out and gazing into its fake eyes. Issa can't help it if nobody likes them. Everyone simply likes me better. "Mirek." "Yes, honored sibling?" Mirek glanced sideways at Issa, eyelids fluttering, then gave his train a wet and smacking kiss. "Mirek," Issa said. Their vision narrowed in rage. They could see nothing except his horrible, wet grin. "Mirek, has anyone ever told you why your trains have a face?" "Because they're adorable, like I am?" "Because there are people bound inside them with wires threaded through their brains. Trains have to choose sometimes which track to follow. If they make the wrong choice, somebody might die. But it's not fair to leave a life or death decision to something without a soul. So we take souls. We trap people inside the engines, and we drug them, and we never, ever let them out. People like me? Mirek's wide-eyed expression was one Issa Kendria had never seen before. It looked like fear. Could be. You're a hardened criminal. Issa Kendria? Whatever their nurse meant to say was drowned by Mirek's screaming. Issa bowed and fled. The beginning of the reception was easy. Issa had no tutor to monitor, or vice versa. The woman with the spangled veil had killed an elk. She was proud of it, glorying in her unexpected facility with a rifle. She even tolerated Gulnarev's attempts to give advice. Issa asked which rifle everyone had used, and didn't laugh at Big Ear's whining for a shotgun. Mirek appeared before Mother this time. He ignored Issa in favor of starfruit and peaches. Issa turned their back to him and interviewed physical security about her favorite handgun. Semi-automatic Polona 8 was the answer. Tough and perhaps too big for Issa's hands. They longed to admire it, but handguns and toasting didn't mix. Mother was wearing white tonight. Her coat was sewn of thousands of silk lozenges, stitched with silver threads so they rippled like a stream as she moved. Everyone turned. Even physical security's eyes were trapped. And Mirek, darling Mirek, chose that moment to inquire, "Mother, is it true they're going to stab a needle through my brainstem and lock me in the dark?" "Ah, Mirhanek, sweetling, who told you that?" "Issa says the trains." He mewed as if he was swallowing a sob. One fat tear trembled from his lashes. Issa had seen this trick before. It involved hanging your head shyly and a glass of ice water. "The trains are for bad people, Mirek." "The trains are for people who were raised wrong. The judges who look after everyone know that some people need a quiet space to learn better. They're studying how to take responsibility in a controlled environment." Mother bent and hugged Mirek, every motion as graceful as a handmade waterfall. Mirek gazed over her shoulder at Issa, smiling what must have looked, to other people, like a tremulous smile. Question?
Was that the whole story or an excerpt of the story?
That's just the beginning of the story. You gotta read the rest to know what happens.
And what's the name of the book again?
So the book is called North Continent Ribbon, and that story is called The Last Tutor, and I didn't read till you met the last tutor. There's one more tutor still to meet.
So there are books for sale, yes?
Yes, I have a stack of books and I brought some pens.
Great.
All right, thank you.
We'll take a break for about 10 minutes, so rehydrate and come back.
Start the second part of our reading in a few minutes. Yes, I am talking. Hello. Just so you know, our next few readers are going to be. Here it is. May 14th, we have Carol Geisander and Daryl Gregory. Carol is here, one of our regulars. June 11th, we have David Surface and Christopher Barzak. July 9th, we have John Kessel and Caitlin Rozakis. August 13th, Deborah Every and Cassandra Kaur. September 10th, Shiva Kumar and Fran Wild. October 8th, Liana Renee Heber and Shveta Thakra. November 12th, we have Mary Robinette Cole and Lara Elena Donnelly. And to round out the year, we have December 10th, Martin Cahill and Daniel Brown. Or Brown? Yeah. So keep coming. And it's always the second Wednesday of the month. And we currently have our second guest. Novelist Andrea Hairston ran away from the physics lab to the theater as a young thing and has been a scientist, artiste, and hoodoo conjurer ever since. Her novels are Archangels of Funk, Will Do Magic for Small Change, a New York Times. Wait, did we, with the parentheses? That's kind of weird, but okay. We have a parentheses here. A New York Times, the latter, an editor's pick and finalist for the Mythopoeic, Lambda, and Otherwise Awards. Redwood and Wildfire, which is winner of the Otherwise and Carl Brandon Award. Master of Poisons, which was on the Kirkus review's Best SF&F. And I didn't drink anything. Science, I didn't. I know, science fiction and fantasy. Well, it was SF&F or science fiction and fantasy of 2020, and Mindscape, coming from Tordotcom, August 2025. So please welcome Andrea.
I'm not going to read from any of those books, and I don't have any with me, but you can find them all at your local bookstore. So please, find somebody who owns a bookstore who loves books and buy my books from them and anybody's books. I'm going to read from the novel that I am currently finishing because I want to try it out on you all. All right, you ready? Okay, so I'm just going to read the beginning and see how far I get. The title of the book is The Redemption Center is Closed on Sundays. Chapter 1. Today, Paula, clues. Any random group of people have much more in common than they realize. Not just 99% of the same genes, not just sharing this particular moment in history, this unique traverse of the earth and sun through vast darkness. Everybody is entangled in miracles and mysteries. Contemplating her cosmic connections with strangers on a hot Monday morning in August, Paula B. Queenie avoided spewing nasty slop she'd regret at the new tenant from across the hall and at Carl, her upstairs neighbor, who was sweaty and disgusting after a workout. Standing in the flickering shadows of busted fluorescent lights, they were yelling about America circling the drain. 3 women from prominent families had gone missing recently and then turned up dead. Unprecedented in their picturesque New England town. The police found one yesterday, a few blocks over. Actually, the dog found her sticking out of a RC recycling bin in the borderlands between the good neighborhood and the dodgy section. No real leads yet. So Paula wondered, who drew that map? Who consigned her 5-story cement block apartment building to the Shadowlands, where a stalker, a killer, might lurk in a crowd and pass for harmless, where everyone was suspect? Upstairs Carl, the new tenant, a defiant middle-aged athlete in running togs who dashed away down narrow steps singing Bulgarian folk music, and even Paula, map makers, man. Why would Paula kidnap some rich child, then dump them in the recycling with shredded documents and a burnt turkey that even the dog didn't want? Why would anybody mix trash like that? Paula swallowed a curse. She probably shared secret impulses with the kidnapper, the killer, and the victim. Of course, Paula beating up a Mercedes-Benz with a sledgehammer wasn't as bad as beating a person to death. But she had to think on that tonight when she had more clues. "Fucking Banana Republic!" Carl yelled into the stairwell. He had a bathroom leak and had called 5 plumbers. Nobody could get here before this evening when he had to work. Stupid ass unions. Well, what about the landlord? Paula ventured. "That shitbag put me on hold, then hung up," Carl replied. Instead of letting him wait, instead of coming home to a flood or reports that socialists were sabotaging American infrastructure, Paula clomped up warped, uneven stairs to fix the leak for free, if she could, and turn off the water if not. Carl hovered over her, fascinated, clueless, and funky. A raggedy towel from his gym job stuck to his neck. Pump it up. Be the best you. Paula showed him a rusty joint and nasty blockage, then suggested that whatever he put down that drain on a regular basis, he should dispose of somewhere more appropriate. Carl almost broke into tears, relieved that the socialists hadn't found him yet. He huffed and flexed. I'm ready for him, no. A big guy and a weightlifter, Carl shaved his body hair so as not to obscure the tattoos or muscles. Only bushy, dyed blonde eyebrows remained, a scary look for social media. #survivalists forever. He'd been in training for the apocalypse since he was 25. 10 years and some change. His closets were jammed with neatly stacked canned goods and survival gear. Oil lanterns, ancient weapons, maps, and tools hung on the walls of his otherwise Spartan apartment. Paula liked to be prepared for anything too, but seriously. She started to leave, and Carl blocked the front door, pleading with her to reset the Wi-Fi while she was up. Really? Instead of saying no, she left a voice message at her job. Anquinite, I have a mission. Might be running late. She'd have to race to meet the 7:30 a.m. bus. Oops, almost forgot. She opened the valve to let Carl's water through again. At least I'm not stuffing bodies down my pipes. Carl laughed. Paula didn't. He was keeping something from her. He dragged her to the spaghetti junction by his router. She switched it off, then on. No problem. He shoved his phone in her face and scrolled through multiple sites. Detectives had put out a call on social media and everywhere to find the owner of a goofy St. Bernard poodle mix. Every image was blurry, refusing to resolve. A haze of curly silver hair except lopsided black ears and black masks over slitted eyes. Paula recognized the dog immediately. They met when Paula was cleaning out the dog's cage at the Pet and Wild Animal Rescue. Well, police tried to take that dog in for questioning yesterday. She escaped. Carl scowled. I can't believe you haven't seen these. He was one of the average Americans who checked his phone 344 times a day. Paula had trained herself out of that. Worse than kicking heroin. She wasn't letting Carl or anybody drag her back. A dog like that walked you home from the bus one night, right? Many nights. She squinted at an image. So you think that stray is the dog cops are looking for? I don't know. You tell me, Carl replied. She's your friend. Few animals stayed long enough at the animal rescue for Paula to make friends. The rescue's mission was release everybody back into the wild or find a good people home ASAP. The Saint Berdoodle was there a while. She broke out of her cage to follow Paula around while she cleaned. Nobody ever figured out how she got loose. Paula asked the dog point blank once, "What's your magic? How do you do it?" The dog jumped up, put soggy paws on Paula's chest, and licked her nose. The landlord's no pets, just service animals policy prevented Paula from adopting her. Good prospects kept taking the dog home and returning her a week later to last February. Paula was surprised how sad the empty cage felt. Then, one Monday night, the Saint Berdoodle showed up at the bus stop. Instead of turning her in for bad behavior, Paula let her eat a cheese bun, and they'd been meeting ever since, no questions asked. Paula shook her head. I can't tell these stray dogs apart. A lie. Carl didn't notice. Give up anything you know. The cops could use some help. He raged on about the idiot police allowing a major suspect to go chase after the dog, and poof, they were both smoke. This was not mere incompetence. This was part of the plot to destroy capitalism. Recycle or die. RC's disposal, dump it all and start doing better. Carl shook his head. That ain't random. That's New Age code. We're supposedly so messed up that we gotta dump everything American and right. Paula never knew what to say when Carl spun these theories. She wiped flecks of spit from his screen. The Saint Berdoodle was magic. Forget trying to lock her up. Well, like you claim the dog could Houdini her way out of San Quentin. Carl interrupted his own rant. Your Wi-Fi was really fine, right? Paula sidestepped. He hugged his bare chest, sheepish. You're my one friend in this building. She was the only person who listened to him for more than 30 seconds. Does that make them friends? Paula could talk to anybody, one of her superpowers. Carl wanted to talk about murder, mystery dogs, and that suspicious character, a burly black man who claimed the dog wasn't his. Exactly. This dog belonged to herself. The black man walked away from the crime scene and nobody had seen him since. A serial killer, sex addict, anti-fascist terrorist, or both. According to the trash-talking disinformation nuts Carl mainlined. The internet, man. Okay, Paula said carefully. Black mystery man is more likely an innocent bystander, a later victim, or even an alien with unknown powers. Alien? Carl looked offended. I'm being serious. Well, so were the other disinfo nuts. According to you, Black Mystery Man walked into the brush following the dog, then both of them literally disappeared on the security cameras without a trace. The police and the feds combed the entire area. That's a difficult trick for us Earth beings. Disappearing like that? Carl pouted, furry eyebrows wiggling. The Norse gods on his chest became agitated. Yeah, but nah, no way, Paula sighed. I clean a building over there, Cloud Heights Enterprises, a cutting-edge tech firm. Their security cameras are no joke. No, see, calling the police is this guy's how to get away with murder plan. Well, that's not really the optimum plan for a burly black man, she countered. Well, I'm not being racist, he insisted, his jaw and hands clenched. Uh-huh, she replied, weary. Carl sputtered. He expected her to argue. Why? People believe in the world they wanted to believe in and ignored evidence of other worlds. Carl, his disinfo-tears, and Paula too lived in a multiverse while insisting it was one world. And what could anybody do about that besides despair? Well, Paula refused despair. However, she had yet to come up with anything better. Carl squirmed. You got me wrong. I just mean we're all suspects. Paula startled at her earlier thought in Carl's mouth. She narrowed her eyes at him. Tattooed, burly, bald, white dude with a hint of southern accent. Alabama? He nodded. Tuskegee. I don't imagine you murdering anybody, she said gently. He licked his lips, excited by her faith in him, yet still unsure. I don't think of you like that either. How sweet of you. Hard to predict what she might do. Beating up the Bens was a total surprise. Anger and violence crackled under her breast, snuck across her skin. Well, you know, I've seen people disappear live on stage, Carl said, and all you need is the right setup. And a guy at the gym says you can even fool cameras, deep fake them. Deep fake? Well, not this particular horror show. The clues don't fit, Paula declared. Carl's eyebrows went up. Oh, yeah? Especially the Saint Berdoodle bit. The dog walked Paula out of some nasty mess over on High Street several times and saved her butt down by the river, too, when she got lost in a maze of trails. A rescue dog. Burly black man was probably one of the dog's friends. She led him into a dangerous situation, and when it became dicey with the cops, she helped him disappear. Paula had seen the dog disappear before. At the Mooseberry Mall that night last spring when half the city lost power. The St. Berdoodle blinked out like the lights. The other time they were walking by the Maple Street fire station and the alarm went off. Engine after engine screeched into the street and the dog growled at tones Paula couldn't hear. Her tail was a blade and silver hair shimmered like it was full of tiny sparks. She leapt over the fire hydrant and was gone. Now, both times, Paula refused to trust her eyes and concocted crap explanations about sudden dark, sensitive dog eyes and ears and mad dashes that explained nothing. This allowed her to ignore uncomfortable, inexplicable possibilities. She refrained from mentioning any of this to Carl. Okay, deep fake or not, the dog is key. Carl was right about that. Yeah, okay, but I can't be late for work. Paula patted Carl's arm. I have dust and pollen control for Anquinique. He nodded. You're a rich lady writer. Paula slipped through the door. Anquinique thinks she's middle class. Oh, that's rich, Carl smirked. Ignore my spiel. Tell the cops where the clues take you. I mean, okay, I rag on the cops too much, and they didn't do squat for Melody because nobody cares about a mouthy waitress. But you should leave danger mystery to the professionals. Uh-huh. Well, update me tonight with what else you dig up on this murder mystery. And Paula escaped into the hall as Carl mauled over his assignment. Half the busted lights winked out. The landlord would wait till it was pitch dark to replace burnouts. Paula stumbled down the jacked up stairs, not really thinking about that, because what was the St. Berdoodle up to? I'm hoping to finish more. No, I thought that was a good place to stop. So that's why it's a cliffhanger. What was the St. Berdoodle up to? Yeah. So I'm hoping to finish it. I'm almost finished. I'm at the point where the dog is finding the murderer. Surprise. Right. The dog is the detective. But I'm hoping to get it finished in the next few weeks. And to my editor, who has been waiting for it for a while, so he'll be very happy. And he wanted to bring it out next year. So he will hopefully still be able to bring it out next year if I get it to him by May, which is my plan. So,
Who's the publisher?
The publisher is Tor and Macmillan. And what? Oh, and Mindscape. Right, Mindscape. I have my first novel is being reissued by Tor. They love me so much. They are bringing back all my backlists. So it will be out, and I edited Mindscape. Yeah, right. It was like, whoa. And I still liked it 20 years later. And weirdly, it is very much about right now. So it'll be out August 9th. So just in time for Worldcon. So if any of you are going to be there, I will have that book there in hardcover. Yay! So, but any other questions?
Do you have a title for this one you just read from?
Yes, the Redemption Center is closed on Sundays. Yes, that's the title. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you to both our wonderful readers and to our wonderful audience, and I hope you'll all join us next month. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Check out our website at kgbfantasticfiction.org and click on support if you'd like to help keep the series going. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening and see you next month.